The rain was falling hard that night, a relentless storm crashing against the hospital windows like the pounding of a broken heart. Inside the dim, sterile room, a young woman clutched her swollen belly, her face pale with pain and tears. Her hair was plastered to her forehead, her hands trembling as she fought to hold on. She wasn't just any woman, she was a wife, a mother-to-be, and she was alone. Abandoned in the cruelest moment of her life, left to suffer while her body waged war to bring two tiny lives into the world. Her husband, the man she once trusted with everything, had walked out just when she needed him most. He had vanished into the night, chasing his own selfish desires, while she gasped and cried for help. But fate has a way of rewriting stories, of sending the most unexpected person into the darkest hour. And on that night, when her life seemed to be breaking apart, the doors of the hospital burst open. A tall figure stormed in, his presence commanding, his voice like thunder cutting through the despair. He didn't hesitate, he looked at her and declared to everyone listening, "She's mine now. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in stories that prove love can rise from the ashes of betrayal, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to our channel, Stories Collection." Every click helps us continue spreading stories that touch the heart and remind us of the power of compassion. Her name was Emily, just 26, with soft brown eyes that always carried a hint of sadness. She had married young, believing in the fairy-tale promise of forever. Her husband, Daniel, had once charmed her with his easy smile, his whispered vows, and dreams of a family. But dreams can rot in silence when love turns selfish, and Emily learned too late that Daniel's devotion was only skin deep. By the 7th month of her pregnancy, the cracks in their marriage widened into canyons. His words grew sharp, his absence longer, his eyes restless with hunger for a life she could no longer give him. And then, on the night the twins chose to come, when her body trembled with agony, Daniel stood over her, his face hardened, and said words she would never forget. "I can't do this anymore. You'll figure it out without me." And he left. He walked away from the hospital bed, from his unborn children, from the vows he had made. Emily screamed, not just from contractions, but from the raw, unbearable grief of being abandoned. Every sound of the storm outside seemed to echo her pain. The monitors beeped, nurses rushed in and out, but Emily's heart was breaking faster than her body could endure. She prayed silently between contractions, begging God for strength, for a miracle, for someone to hold her hand in the hour she felt most alone. And then, as if heaven heard her cries, the doors swung open. A man, drenched from the rain, strode inside like a force of nature. His name was Alexander Steele, a billionaire known across cities for his ruthless business empire, but also whispered about for his solitary, guarded life. He hadn't come by chance. He had been on his way to finalize a deal at the hospital's private wing when he overheard Emily's cries, saw the vacant space where a husband should have been, and felt something stir deep within him. Alexander, the man who believed he had no room in his life for love, felt his chest tighten at the sight of her desperation. Without hesitation, he stepped forward, ignoring the curious eyes of doctors and nurses, and claimed a place at her side. He wrapped his hand around hers, firm, steady, anchoring her to something real. And when a nurse asked, "Are you family?" his answer came sharp and undeniable, "She's mine now." That moment rewrote the course of Emily's life. Between pushes, tears, and the agony of bringing life into the world, she found strength in the stranger's grip. His presence shielded her from despair, his voice grounding her as if he had been meant to be there all along. Hours passed like lifetimes until the cries of two newborns filled the sterile room. A boy and a girl, perfect and fragile, their tiny fists clenching the air as if claiming their own right to survive. Emily wept, not just from the pain, but from the miracle of their existence. And through her haze of exhaustion, she saw Alexander holding one of the babies, his powerful frame trembling as if he had never felt something so delicate. His eyes, usually cold and calculating, softened with awe. He didn't just see babies, he saw a chance to be more than the lonely empire he had built. He saw family. But life never changes in one night without resistance. Emily struggled in the days that followed, her body weak, her heart heavy with betrayal. She didn't know why Alexander stayed, why he kept showing up with warm meals, why he paid for the hospital bills Daniel had left unpaid, why he walked her and the twins out of the hospital doors like they belonged to him. Part of her feared pity, part of her longed for comfort. And yet, slowly, Alexander proved he wasn't there out of obligation. He came because he cared. Because something in Emily's brokenness reflected his own loneliness. Because the twins, with their fragile hands curling around his finger, lit a spark in a man who had once believed his billions could shield him from emptiness. The road wasn't smooth. Emily wrestled with distrust, with the haunting memory of Daniel's betrayal, with the fear of depending on another man who could walk away. Nights were long, the baby's cries endless, her exhaustion suffocating. Yet Alexander didn't flinch. He stayed when she snapped from tiredness, stayed when bills piled high, stayed when shame made her want to hide. He stayed and built her strength piece by piece, not with grand promises, but with simple acts. Rocking the babies to sleep, bringing her flowers, just because, shielding her from Daniel's sudden reappearance months later when he realized what he had lost. And when Daniel came back, demanding rights he had abandoned, it was Alexander who stood tall, his voice like fire, declaring that Emily and the twins were no longer his to wound. It wasn't love at first sight. It was love born of storms, of late nights, of shared burdens. Emily found herself slowly trusting, slowly laughing again, slowly daring to dream of a future not marred by betrayal. And one evening, as the twins slept peacefully, she looked at Alexander across the small living room they now shared. He was cradling her son, his head bowed in tenderness, and her heart whispered the truth she had been too afraid to name. She wasn't alone anymore. She never would be again. So when Alexander finally knelt, not with flashy diamonds or public declarations, but with a quiet, trembling heart, asking her if he could be more than the man who had stormed into her life, if he could be her partner, her protector, her children's father, Emily cried. Not out of sadness this time, but out of gratitude. Because in the ashes of betrayal, she had found a love stronger than any she had imagined. And together, they built not just a family, but a home where the twins would grow surrounded by love, where Emily would never again fear abandonment, and where Alexander would discover that the greatest empire is not built on wealth, but on hearts that choose to stay. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you of the power of second chances and the strength of kindness, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope. Comment your feelings, and subscribe to Stories Collection. Every story we tell is meant to heal, inspire, and remind us that love can be found in the unlikeliest places. Special request to comment line before ending. Please comment below. Love is stronger than betrayal. The rain lashed against the hospital windows like broken glass, a storm echoing the chaos inside Emily's heart. She was only 26, clinging to the bed, sweat and tears pouring down her pale face as contractions tore through her body. The room spun with nurses' footsteps and the beeping of machines, but nothing could drown out the hollow emptiness left by her husband. Daniel, the man who had vowed to love her, who had sworn to stand by her, had looked her in the eyes as she cried for help and said, "I can't do this anymore." Then he walked away. Left alone in her most desperate hour, Emily gasped in both pain and despair. She prayed for strength, for someone, anyone, to not let her drown in abandonment. And then, the impossible happened. The hospital doors burst open, and a man stepped in, a tall figure, dripping from the storm, his presence commanding the entire room. Alexander Steele, billionaire, feared by rivals, untouchable in the world of business. Yet in that moment, he wasn't a tycoon. He was a man whose heart cracked open when he saw Emily's agony. He strode forward, clasped her trembling hand, and when a nurse asked if he was family, his answer thundered through the room, "She's mine now." If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in stories that show love can rise even from betrayal, take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to Stories Collection. Every click helps keep these stories alive. Hours of labor felt like lifetimes, but Emily drew strength from the stranger at her side. His grip steadied her, his voice anchored her, and when at last the cries of two newborns pierced the night, a boy and a girl, she wept with both relief and heartbreak. Through blurred vision she saw Alexander, the billionaire no one dared approach, cradling one of the babies as if it were the most precious treasure in the world. His cold, guarded eyes softened, trembling with awe. In the days that followed, Emily wrestled with disbelief. Why had he stayed? Why did he pay the bills Daniel left behind, bring her meals, rock the babies when exhaustion crushed her? Slowly, she saw the truth. Alexander didn't pity her. He needed her and the twins as much as they needed him. Behind his billions lay a man starved for family, for warmth, for something real. Emily's scars ran deep. She flinched at kindness, haunted by the memory of abandonment. But Alexander stayed. Through the baby's endless cries, through her doubts, through the moment Daniel tried to slither back into her life months later. Alexander stood tall, shielding her with words that burned like fire. "You lost them the night you walked away. They're not yours to hurt anymore." It wasn't fairy tale love at first sight. It was love born of storms, of midnight feedings, of laughter breaking through tears. One evening, as the twins slept, Emily looked at Alexander across their tiny living room. He was cradling her son, his head bent low, his entire frame softened with tenderness. And her heart whispered what her lips hadn't dared to say: she wasn't alone anymore. When Alexander finally asked her to let him be more than the man who stormed into her life, more than the stranger who refused to leave, she cried. Not out of grief, but out of gratitude. Because in the ashes of betrayal, she had found a love stronger, truer, and more enduring than she ever imagined. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, share it with someone who believes in second chances, and subscribe to Stories collection. Every story we tell is meant to heal, inspire, and remind us that love can be found in the unlikeliest places. Special request to comment line before ending. Please comment below. Love is stronger than betrayal.